Have you ever felt like you're drowning in life? Every moment feels like a battle against something you can't see, something you can't control. You're holding on so tightly, but no matter how much effort you put in, the pressure only keeps building, and the more you fight, the more things seem to slip away. But what if letting go, the very thing you've been taught to fear, is actually the secret to freedom? What if the very thing you think is your lifeline, your security, is the very thing that's holding you back? Imagine releasing all that pressure, all the weight you've been carrying for years. Imagine waking up and realizing everything is exactly where it needs to be, not because you fought for it, but because you let go. This isn't some feel-good fantasy. It's the wild truth that will shift your life forever. If you're ready to break free from the chains of control, fear, and constant struggle, then stay with me. What you're about to hear could change everything. If this hit you like it hit me, then don't miss a second of what's to come. Hit that subscribe button and join this journey to freedom, because we're just getting started. You won't want to miss the ending, where everything finally falls into place. There's a peculiar thing that happens when we live our lives clinging desperately to control. We don't realize that we're slowly suffocating under the very weight of our own expectations and desires. It's like grasping at sand, hoping it stays in your palm. No matter how tightly you hold on, the sand slips away and all that's left is emptiness. The harder you try to control everything, the more it eludes you. Yet we continue to do it, believing somehow that if we could just hold on long enough, everything would finally settle. But here's the paradox. In trying to control it all, we lose what truly matters. We lose the moment. We lose ourselves. Life moves in ways we can't predict, constantly shifting like the ocean's tides. Every day, we wake up and try to navigate this vast ocean, our minds filled with plans, expectations, and fears of what could go wrong. We tell ourselves that if we just manage it right, everything will turn out fine. But here's the truth. The more we grip, the more we are blinded to the natural flow of things, to the delicate dance of life that doesn't require our forceful intervention. Think about the things you cling to the most. The job that defines you, the relationship that feels like it needs constant repair, the image you've worked so hard to maintain. You pour your energy into keeping them from slipping through your fingers, afraid that letting go of any of it would mean losing yourself. Yet, in all this clinging, have you noticed that something is slowly fading away? Your peace, your joy, your ability to simply be. What if I told you that the very thing you're holding onto tightly is exactly what's making you feel stuck? We attach ourselves to outcomes, believing that they hold the key to our happiness. We think that if we can just control how things unfold, if we can just ensure that our life looks a certain way, we'll feel at peace. But all we end up doing is fighting against the current of life. And when the current pulls us in a direction we hadn't planned for, we resist. The illusion of control makes us believe that we can somehow outsmart the universe, that if we plan everything just right, we'll avoid failure, loss, and disappointment. But the truth is, the more we try to control life, the more we end up disconnected from it. We forget that life is never fully in our hands. We control our responses, but we do not control the events that unfold before us. And that's where the tension arises. The moment you realize that control is merely an illusion, you begin to see how much unnecessary suffering you've caused yourself by resisting the natural flow of things, resisting change, resisting impermanence, resisting the fact that life has a rhythm and pace of its own. Think about the last time you felt deeply frustrated. Perhaps it was a situation that didn't go according to plan, a career opportunity that slipped away, a relationship that ended before you expected it to, or a dream that seemed just out of reach. How did you react? Did you try to fix the situation, or did you let yourself accept it? Did you double down on your efforts, trying harder, controlling more, and losing sleep over the possibility of failure? That's the essence of our obsession with control. We try harder when life pushes back, and we mistake that effort for strength or determination. In reality, it's simply resistance. The tighter we grip, the faster it slips away. But what if there was another way? What if the key to unlocking true peace and fulfillment wasn't about fighting against life, but about surrendering to it? Not in the sense of giving up, but in letting life be what it is, without forcing it to meet our expectations. The fear of letting go is what keeps us trapped. We fear that by releasing our grip, we will fall apart, lose everything we've worked so hard for. But the opposite is true. When we let go of the need for control, we make room for true freedom. True freedom isn't found in dictating every step we take or in manipulating outcomes. It's found in trusting that life will unfold as it should, and that our happiness doesn't hinge on everything going according to plan. There's an old Buddhist teaching on non-attachment. It's often misunderstood as apathy or indifference, but in reality, non-attachment is a practice of freedom. It's the ability to hold things loosely, to care deeply, but not to cling. To allow life to move without chaining it to our desires and expectations. You see, when we cling to an outcome, we forget that we don't own the moment. We're not here to control every detail of our lives, we're here to experience it. And yet, we've been taught that control is the ultimate form of security. We've been conditioned to believe that if we just try hard enough, we can shape our reality and shield ourselves from life's unpredictability. But the truth is, control is what keeps us imprisoned. It keeps us bound to fear, to anxiety, to the constant need for validation and approval. Lily, the protagonist of this story, was living in that very prison. She had spent years chasing success, trying to climb the corporate ladder, holding onto relationships that weren't serving her, and pushing herself to be the person everyone expected her to be. She believed that if she could just keep it all together, keep everything in place, she would finally feel at peace. But what she didn't realize was that her quest for control was the very thing that was keeping her from peace. It wasn't until Lily had a moment of quiet reflection in Central Park, standing on the edge of the lake, that she realized she had been holding on too tightly. Her life had become a constant effort to protect and preserve things that weren't meant to be hers forever. The job, the relationship, the image, all of it was draining her, and she couldn't understand why she still felt so unfulfilled. That's when she stumbled upon the realization that letting go wasn't a form of weakness. It was a form of wisdom. She didn't need to control every outcome, and she didn't need to hold on to things that were already slipping away. What if letting go was actually the path to freedom? This was the beginning of Lily's transformation. The first step was simply realizing that her attachment to control had been the cause of her pain. And the moment she acknowledged this truth, she began to breathe again. For the first time in years, Lily felt a sense of relief, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She didn't have to be perfect. She didn't have to have all the answers. She could trust the flow of life, knowing that it was okay to let go. Lily didn't know exactly where this new path would take her, but for the first time in a long time, she was willing to trust. Trust that things would unfold in their own time. Trust that the things she was meant to have would come to her without force or manipulation. And so, she began to practice letting go in small ways every day. The next time a relationship with a friend started to feel strained, she didn't force it. She allowed it to flow. When a work project didn't go as planned, she didn't try to control every outcome. Instead, she simply let it be, knowing that her worth wasn't tied to her success or failure. By letting go, Lily wasn't losing control. She was gaining something far more valuable: peace. You see, this is the paradox of life. The more you try to control, the more you lose. The tighter you grip, the faster things slip through your fingers. But when you let go, everything begins to fall into place. Not because you forced it, but because you allowed it to be what it is. And that, my friends, is the ultimate form of freedom. Freedom from the illusion of control, and the peace that comes from trusting life to unfold as it should. This is just the beginning of Lily's journey, and a step into the deep truth that letting go is the key to inner peace. The path is not easy, but it is transformational. As Lily continues her journey, she will encounter challenges, but she will no longer be shackled by the need for control. Instead, she will be free to embrace life as it comes, trusting the process, and experiencing the beauty of each moment without fear of the future or regret from the past. There is something almost magical about the idea of letting go. For years, I watched people around me hold on tightly to things they thought they couldn't live without: careers, relationships, dreams, and even memories. These attachments, at first glance, seemed to define who they were. Their lives were built around what they clung to: the constant need for success, the struggle to maintain control, the fight to hold everything in place. And yet, time and again, these same people found themselves stuck, fighting battles that didn't need to be fought, carrying burdens that didn't need to be carried. Lily, our central character, was one of them. For years, she lived with this unspoken fear of letting go. She thought that releasing control meant losing something important, something that had always been a part of her identity. She thought letting go of that tightly held dream, of that relationship that no longer served her, meant she would be incomplete, undefined, or lost. But one day, after a simple reflection in Central Park, Lily realized that letting go wasn't losing. It was the ultimate act of freedom. It wasn't about giving up or being passive. Letting go wasn't about the absence of effort. It was about freeing herself from the chains of attachment that bound her to the past, to expectations, and to fears that didn't even belong to her. In the quiet reflection that followed, a voice echoed softly in her mind. When you stop forcing things to happen, you allow life to unfold as it should. These words, simple yet profound, would mark the beginning of a transformative journey, one that would forever change how Lily lived, loved, and experienced the world. The paradox of control. We often think that the more we try to control, the more we can avoid pain and uncertainty. We spend years trying to perfect our lives, believing that control is the key to happiness. And in the process, we lose sight of what truly matters. Lily had always prided herself on being in control. She thrived in a world of planning and preparation. She scheduled every minute, every detail. It was a life crafted from meticulous effort, yet it always felt as though something was missing. In her quest for perfection, she had unknowingly trapped herself in a cycle of expectations, always striving for more and never truly feeling fulfilled. The moment Lily allowed herself to breathe, to truly pause and reflect, she began to understand the paradox. The more you try to control, the more life slips through your fingers. She thought back to a time when her efforts to control everything resulted in frustration and burnout, especially in her relationships. She had been holding onto her relationship with James with a fierce determination, as though it were her final lifeline. But by trying to control their bond, trying to manage how he should behave and how things should unfold, she was suffocating the very thing she wanted to protect. When she finally let go, it wasn't that she stopped caring about James. She still loved him deeply, but she stopped forcing the relationship into her mold. And what happened next? Instead of breaking, the relationship softened. There was a space created for both of them to grow, not in the way Lily had planned, but in a way that was authentic and true. You cannot change what is outside of you, but you can change what is inside of you. This quote by Epictetus reminded her that change begins within. She realized that letting go wasn't about abandoning what mattered. It was about trusting the flow of life and giving herself the freedom to live in alignment with what was truly meant for her. When she let go of her need to control every detail, she invited more peace, more space, and ultimately, more joy into her life. The liberation of detachment. Detachment isn't about being indifferent or uncaring. It's about being free from the chains of expectations and the need for validation. For most of her life, Lily had attached herself to outcomes. If only she could achieve more, do more, be more, then she would finally feel at peace. But no matter how much she achieved, it always felt like something was missing. The breakthrough came when she encountered the concept of non-attachment, a principle deeply rooted in Buddhist philosophy. It was here that she discovered that attachment, even to the things and people she loved most, was actually what had been draining her. Non-attachment doesn't mean to stop caring or to stop loving. It means not allowing those things to define you, to bind you, or to determine your peace of mind. Attachment is the root of suffering, as Buddha said, and Lily's journey mirrored this teaching. The more she clung to her identity, her work, her relationships, her image, the more she suffered. When she learned to detach, she didn't lose the things she loved. She freed herself from the fear of losing them. True freedom, she realized, came from within. The practice of letting go, a daily ritual. The real shift began when Lily practiced letting go not just as a concept, but as a daily ritual. It was no longer enough for her to simply think about letting go, she had to live it. She made a conscious decision to step back and observe her thoughts, her reactions, and her attachments. Each day she would wake up and ask herself, what am I holding on to today? Is it the need for perfection? Is it the need to control how others see her? Or perhaps it's the fear of failure that holds her in place. She would sit quietly, breathing deeply, and release these attachments one by one, knowing that each release would bring her closer to true peace. And each time she did this, she found herself lighter, freer, and more present. The small, seemingly insignificant moments, the quiet morning coffee, a conversation with a friend, a moment of reflection in the park, became vivid and fulfilling in ways they never had been before. As Lily let go of the need to manage everything, she began to see the beauty in allowing life to unfold naturally, without forcing it into her rigid expectations. Lily found herself spending less time planning and more time experiencing. She wasn't simply going through the motions of life anymore. Instead, she was engaged in it, with all its unpredictability, and it felt like she was truly living for the first time. Trusting the universe, a new way of being. One of the most powerful realizations in Lily's journey was that trusting the universe is not about waiting for everything to fall into place. It's about believing that life will unfold in its own time, in its own way. Trusting the process means understanding that the outcome is not the end goal. The journey is. She had been so focused on getting to the destination, always striving for a future that promised fulfillment, but she began to see that fulfillment wasn't a destination. It was in the present moment. The future depends on what we do in the present, Buddha said, and Lily realized that by letting go of her need to control her future, she was finally able to embrace the present. When she let go of the fear of failure, of not being good enough, she freed herself from the pressure to perform. She didn't need to have it all figured out. She didn't need to have all the answers. And in that space of uncertainty, she found the freedom to explore, to grow, and to become who she was always meant to be. The surrender that sets you free. Surrendering isn't about giving up, it's about trusting. trusting that everything that happens is part of the plan, even the things we don't understand, even the setbacks, the disappointments, and the failures. Lily learned that surrendering control doesn't mean being passive. It means choosing to flow with life instead of fighting against it. In every situation, there was always an opportunity to let go. Whether it was releasing a past relationship, shifting her career goals, or even accepting life's imperfections, Lily began to see that each moment of surrender was a moment of freedom. The more she let go, the more life began to align. It was like stepping out of a fog and into clarity. Everything started to make sense, not in the way she had planned, but in a way that was even more beautiful than she had imagined. The power of letting go, a journey to peace. Letting go is not about giving up. It's about releasing the need for control and trusting that the universe has its own plan for you. When we let go, we create space for what's truly meant for us to flow into our lives. Lily's journey wasn't easy. It was a process of unlearning years of habits, beliefs, and expectations. But with every step, she became more peaceful, more present, and more connected to her true self. Letting go wasn't a loss, it was a gift. It was the key to unlocking the life she had been searching for. By letting go, Lily learned the greatest lesson of all. True peace is found when we stop forcing, when we stop resisting, and when we start trusting the flow of life. And as she embraced this truth, everything truly began to fall into place. The moment you let go, life begins to meet you where you truly are. Buddha. There is a strange and almost magical phenomenon that occurs when we finally choose to surrender. It is not the surrender that signifies giving up. It's not about throwing in the towel, letting go of hope, or retreating into apathy. No, the surrender we speak of here is a kind of peaceful release, a deep, soul-filling relief that comes when you stop forcing, stop clinging, and stop trying to control every aspect of your life. This surrender is about trusting life to unfold as it is meant to, without trying to manipulate or orchestrate the details. Surrender is the deepest kind of healing. It's the ability to release the hold that past pain has on you, the relentless pursuit of approval, the exhausting desire for control, and the weight of expectations that have been placed on your shoulders, either by others or by yourself. It's about giving yourself permission to simply be, without feeling the need to perform or justify your existence. It's a radical form of self-love, one that releases the burden of always striving, always struggling, and always fighting. When Lily first embarked on this journey of letting go, she wasn't entirely sure what she was seeking. Her life had always been a relentless pursuit of achievement, of proving her worth through work, relationships, and material success. But despite everything she had attained, she still felt a nagging emptiness, a void that nothing could fill. She realized that her attempts to control, to micromanage, and to strive for perfection had left her exhausted and disconnected from herself. The shift began when she acknowledged that the endless effort to control everything had drained her energy. Her life had been full of force, forced to make relationships work, forced to achieve more at work, and forced to meet the expectations of others. It was a lifestyle that left her in a constant state of burnout. But what if there was another way? What if, by simply releasing her grip, she could create the space for everything to fall into place naturally? What if she could free herself from the constant need to perform and instead embrace the stillness within? Surrender as healing, the art of letting go. When you let go, you create space for what is meant for you. The concept of surrender is often misunderstood. It is not a passive state. It's not about surrendering to life's difficulties with resignation, nor is it about being apathetic toward the world around you. Instead, surrender is a conscious choice to release your need for control over the uncontrollable aspects of life. It's the courageous decision to stop fighting against the current and start flowing with it. As Lily embraced the idea of surrender, she realized that her constant fight had been against something that was always meant to change. Life itself was in constant flux. Nothing ever stayed the same. The relationships, the jobs, the identities she had attached to, they were all part of the ebb and flow of existence. But instead of resisting it, she began to see it as freedom. Freedom from the need to control, and instead, freedom to experience life as it was, with all its messiness and unpredictability. Surrender is not weakness, as many would believe. It's the ultimate strength, the strength to let go of your attachment to outcomes and your deep desire for certainty. It's the wisdom to understand that life will unfold as it should, whether you intervene or not. The more we try to control things, the more we get caught in the illusion that we can somehow shape the universe according to our desires. But the truth is, this only causes more suffering. Buddhism teaches us the impermanence of all things. Life is always changing, and this truth can be a source of deep peace when we accept it. Surrendering to this impermanence is one of the most healing things you can do for yourself. It releases you from the shackles of attachment, freeing you from the pain of holding on to things that were never meant to last forever. Lily began to practice surrender in small, everyday moments. When she felt the old impulse to control, whether it was the way her conversation was going or the outcome of a difficult meeting, she would pause, take a deep breath, and ask herself, what would it feel like to let go right now? It wasn't about being passive or doing nothing. It was about being present and allowing the moment to unfold naturally without trying to force it. Surrender became her way of being in harmony with life instead of constantly battling against it. And in that surrender, she discovered peace. A peace that wasn't dependent on the outcomes, but on her ability to trust and be still, trusting the flow of life. Surrender as freedom. You don't have to control the river, just flow with it. Lily had spent much of her life thinking that if she could control everything, she would find peace. But what she realized is that peace isn't found in control. It's found in surrender, in allowing life to flow, even when it's uncomfortable. The process of surrendering is not an easy one. It requires a deep level of trust, trust that life will unfold as it should, even if we don't always understand it. Trust that we are exactly where we are meant to be, even in the midst of confusion, uncertainty, or pain. Trust that the universe is guiding us toward our highest good, even when it doesn't look the way we expected. Lily thought back to a time when she had faced a major career setback. She had worked tirelessly toward a promotion, believing that it was the key to her happiness and fulfillment. But when the opportunity didn't materialize, she was crushed. She had put so much of herself into that goal that without it, she felt empty. But instead of continuing to fight for that position, instead of clinging to the idea that this job would define her success, Lily let go. She trusted that life had something better in store for her. And sure enough, when she released her tight grip on the outcome, new opportunities began to appear. The career path she had clung to so tightly was no longer the right one for her. She was now open to new directions, new possibilities, and new growth. Letting go of attachment, the ultimate freedom. When you stop forcing things to happen, you allow them to unfold naturally. Surrender is also about releasing attachment. Attachment is the bond we create with people, things, and ideas, often to the point where they define us. We become so attached to a relationship, a career, or an identity that we begin to lose sight of who we really are. We think that these attachments are what give us purpose and stability, but in reality, they only imprison us. The more we hold onto these attachments, the more we suffer. We suffer because we believe that without them, we are nothing. We suffer because we feel as though we must control the outcome in order to secure our happiness. Lily realized that true freedom was not found in holding on, but in letting go. She started by asking herself, "What am I attached to?" She realized that her attachment to her identity as a successful professional was keeping her from experiencing her true worth. She had defined herself by the roles she played, the titles she held, and the achievements she acquired. But when she allowed herself to release these attachments, she discovered a sense of freedom and joy that she had never known. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering because it binds us to the transient world. The only thing that is permanent is change. By embracing impermanence, we can begin to let go of our attachments to people, things, and expectations. We can become free, not from the world, but from our own internal need to control it. The healing journey, from struggle to peace. Surrendering is not giving up, it's giving in to what's meant for you. When Lily fully embraced the concept of surrender, her life began to shift. She had been so focused on achieving certain outcomes, and when those outcomes didn't happen, she thought she had failed. But in reality, she hadn't failed at all. She had simply been too attached to an outcome that wasn't aligned with her highest good. By surrendering to the flow of life, she began to see the beauty in uncertainty. She learned to trust that everything would unfold as it should in its own time. She stopped forcing, stopped overplanning, and started living with greater ease. This was when she began to notice a profound shift in her relationships, her work, and her overall sense of peace. Surrender had healed the wounds that attachment had caused. The stress, the anxiety, the exhaustion, all began to fade. In its place, there was a quiet, deep peace that she hadn't experienced before. Let go, and you will see what life is trying to show you. Lily's journey of surrender had not been easy, but it had been transformative. By letting go of her need for control, she had gained freedom. Freedom from the pressure, the fear, and the anxiety that had once held her hostage. She had allowed herself to trust life, trust the process, trust the flow, and trust herself. Now, as she looks back, she sees the paradox. It was in letting go that she found everything she had been searching for: peace, clarity, and the ability to live in alignment with her true self. And so, like Lily, we too must learn the powerful lesson that letting go is not about losing. It's about releasing the illusion of control and opening ourselves up to the flow of life. In surrendering, we open ourselves to everything we've been trying so hard to force into place. When we stop controlling, everything falls into place, because it was always meant to, and all we had to do was let go. There's a particular kind of freedom that arises not from grasping tightly, but from letting go. It's a paradox that seems counterintuitive at first. How could surrender lead to freedom? How could detachment from the very things we hold dear bring us closer to peace? And yet, in the most profound ways, detachment can transform us, allowing us to experience life with a clarity and lightness we never thought possible. Lily, who had spent years wrestling with control, first encountered this concept during a quiet evening in San Francisco. It was an unexpected, yet pivotal moment. She had recently let go of a relationship that had drained her, one she had fought to preserve despite its toxicity. She thought she was the one who needed to fix things, to force them into place. But in reality, it wasn't about fixing it. It was about allowing herself to release the attachment to the outcome. Detachment doesn't mean coldness, nor does it mean emotional withdrawal. It means releasing the need to possess or control, to tie our identity to people, things, or outcomes. Detachment is about finding peace in the fact that nothing in this world is permanent. The trees in the park, the relationships we cherish, even the work we dedicate ourselves to, everything changes. Detachment isn't indifference, it's wisdom. The power of non-attachment. A Buddhist perspective. Lily's journey toward detachment was greatly influenced by a principle found in Buddhism, non-attachment. This concept doesn't ask us to stop caring. It teaches us to care without clinging, to love without dependence, and to live without fear of losing what we hold dear. In Buddhist thought, attachment is considered one of the causes of suffering. When we attach ourselves too strongly to people, possessions, or outcomes, we are inevitably setting ourselves up for pain because the very nature of life is impermanence. Everything changes. Every person evolves, and every situation eventually transforms. The root of suffering is attachment, said Buddha, and for Lily, this realization was a revelation. In her struggle to hold on to things, relationships, success, expectations, she was creating her own suffering. The more she grasped, the more she lost. It wasn't until she allowed herself to step back and release her hold that she started to feel lightness and peace. Lily began practicing detachment by focusing on observing her emotions and thoughts rather than identifying with them. She had always believed that her value was determined by her job title, her relationships, and her possessions. But when she began to embrace the practice of non-attachment, she realized that these things didn't define her. They were simply parts of her journey, not the whole. Real-life example. Steve Jobs and the power of letting go. To understand detachment better, let's look at Steve Jobs, the iconic co-founder of Apple. Jobs was a visionary, driven by a relentless desire to create products that would change the world. But his journey to success wasn't without challenges. At the height of Apple's success, Jobs was ousted from the company he founded. He had to let go of his role as CEO and watch as Apple struggled without him. For many, this would have been a devastating blow, a moment of profound loss. But for Jobs, it became a turning point. Rather than holding onto the bitterness of being fired, Jobs practiced detachment. He did not cling to his identity as Apple's leader or the outcome of his success. Instead, he embraced the freedom to explore new ventures, leading him to create NXT and later Pixar, both of which shaped his next great chapter in life. Jobs' detachment from his initial company allowed him to return to Apple in 1997, bringing fresh perspectives and new ideas, leading Apple to become one of the world's most valuable companies. His story is a powerful reminder that letting go can lead to a clearer path forward, unclouded by past disappointments or the need for validation. The detachment paradox. The more you let go, the more you gain. It was during her own moments of deep reflection that Lily started to understand the paradox of detachment. She had spent her entire life chasing external validation through her career, relationships, and even social media presence. But the more she sought affirmation from the outside world, the more she felt empty. The approval from others was fleeting, and the achievements she sought felt hollow once they were attained. But then, something shifted. Lily realized that true peace wasn't found in external accomplishments or recognition. It was found in releasing the need to prove herself. It was in detaching from the constant pursuit of success and allowing life to unfold as it was meant to. She realized that her true self wasn't defined by what she did, but by who she was. One of the greatest lessons came from a quote by Buddha. You can search throughout the entire universe for someone who is more deserving of your love and affection than you are yourself, and that person is not to be found anywhere. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Lily began to love herself without conditions. She started to see that detaching from the need to be loved or validated by others allowed her to experience love in its purest form, from within. It wasn't about possessing love or needing it from external sources. It was about allowing it to flow naturally, free from attachment. The struggle of letting go, how to detach from what holds you back. It's important to acknowledge that detaching from something or someone isn't always easy. It's not about cold indifference or apathy. It's about freedom. Freedom from the pressure of expectations, freedom from the need to control, and freedom from the fear of loss. Lily's journey toward detachment wasn't instant. At first, she struggled to let go of her tightly held beliefs about success, identity, and love. There were moments when she felt a deep, almost physical urge to hold on, to return to the familiar patterns of control and attachment. But she also learned that detachment is a practice, one that required patience, self-awareness, and courage. The first step Lily took was to recognize where she was attached. She looked at her work, her relationships, and even the way she defined herself. What did she truly need to feel complete? What was she holding onto out of fear or insecurity? In one particular moment of reflection, she remembered a time when her attachment to a job title defined her sense of worth. She had always believed that if she could climb higher on the corporate ladder, if she could be seen as successful by others, then she would feel worthy. But when she finally let go of that attachment, realizing that her worth was inherent and not tied to her position, she felt an immense weight lifted from her shoulders. Real-life example. The power of letting go in relationships. Another powerful real-life example of detachment can be found in the journey of Oprah Winfrey. Oprah's career began with the challenges of an abusive childhood and numerous struggles to find her place in the world. But it was her relationship with her father that ultimately became the pivotal point in her life. Oprah had a complicated relationship with her father for many years, as she clung to the idea that she needed his approval and validation. She spent years desiring his love and affection, seeking his approval in every endeavor. But when Oprah finally let go of her attachment to needing him to validate her, something remarkable happened. She began to truly forgive him, letting go of the hurt and resentment she had been carrying for so long. This act of forgiveness and detachment allowed Oprah to step into her own power. She became an authentic version of herself, no longer seeking external approval but trusting in her own worth. Oprah's journey is a testament to the healing power of detachment, letting go of what no longer serves us, so that we can step into our full potential. The freedom to live authentically. What detachment ultimately offers is the freedom to live authentically, free from the chains of expectation, fear, and the pursuit of things that don't align with who we truly are. It allows us to let go of the past, to stop clinging to old identities, and to embrace the present moment as it unfolds. When Lily began to detach, she realized that the act of letting go wasn't about losing, it was about gaining. She gained a deeper connection to herself. She gained the ability to live in harmony with life's ebb and flow. And most importantly, she gained the ability to experience peace, knowing that everything she truly needed was already inside her. Detachment is not about cutting ourselves off from the world. It's about living without clinging, loving deeply, but not needing to possess. It's about releasing the illusion that we can control outcomes and accepting that life will unfold as it should. When we let go, we create space for something more meaningful to emerge. True freedom comes when we stop fighting, when we stop clinging, and when we start trusting life to lead us where we need to go. For Lily, detachment wasn't just about letting go of things. It was about letting go of the need for control and the fear of uncertainty. It was about trusting that she could live a life filled with authenticity, peace, and love, without the constant need to prove herself. Detachment is not about abandonment, it's about freedom. It's about choosing to live with grace, peace, and authenticity, regardless of external circumstances. And in that space of freedom, everything begins to fall into place. The moment you let go, life begins to meet you where you truly are. There's an undeniable magic that happens when you finally choose to trust life. It's as though the universe, which you've been fighting against for so long, finally aligns with your intentions, not because you've forced it into place, but because you've learned to let go. Trusting the flow of life isn't about passivity or being a passive participant in your journey. It's not about sitting back and hoping things will work out on their own. No, trusting the flow means acknowledging that life is not something you control, but something you experience. It's a trust in the process, in the unfolding of each moment, and in the truth that everything is happening for a reason. Lily, our protagonist, began to realize this profound truth when she stopped trying to shape life into her perfect vision. She had spent years gripping tightly onto her idea of what life should be. Work had to be perfect. Her relationships had to meet her expectations. Her success had to be immediate. Her progress had to be linear. Every plan had to unfold just as she envisioned it. But all those years of striving, managing, and obsessing over control were draining her. The moment Lily began to practice letting go, she made space for something even greater, the beauty of life's natural flow. No longer tethered to the weight of forced outcomes, she could finally breathe. She could finally allow herself to simply be. The struggle to let go, breaking the chains of fear. Letting go is a phrase that often seems easier said than done. It's a concept that can feel intimidating, even frightening. Fear is a constant companion in our lives, especially when it comes to trusting something as intangible as the flow of life. Lily, like many of us, found it hard to simply release control. After all, she had spent years thinking that control was the key to success, the key to happiness, and the only way to navigate the chaos of the world. When she first considered stepping into trust, truly trusting life to unfold as it would, her heart raced with uncertainty. What would happen if things didn't turn out as planned? What would happen if she stopped trying to control every outcome? The fear of failure, disappointment, and loss loomed large. But as Lily began to sit with these fears, she realized something profound. Fear of the unknown is often the greatest barrier to true freedom. Fear holds us back from moving forward, from letting go, from truly trusting the process. We fear that without control, everything will fall apart. But the reality is, life falls into place when we trust its natural rhythm. The more we fight against the current, the more exhausted we become. It's not about knowing every step. It's about knowing that life will unfold exactly as it should. It's about trusting that every obstacle, every setback, and every challenge has a purpose. The obstacle is the way, as the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said. And the more Lily embraced this, the more she understood that each twist and turn was leading her closer to the life she was meant to live. The freedom of letting life unfold. Real-life story of trusting the journey. One of the most striking real-life examples of trusting the flow of life comes from the life of Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, whose life and career were marked by one pivotal lesson: the importance of trust and surrender. In 1985, Steve Jobs was ousted from Apple, the very company he had founded. For most people, this would have been a devastating blow, losing control over a dream that had defined their life. But Jobs did something remarkable. Instead of falling into despair or bitterness, he surrendered to what was happening. He trusted that life had something better in store for him. He went on to create NeXT, a computer company that ultimately led to his return to Apple. His time away from Apple wasn't a setback, it was a lesson in trusting the process. He couldn't have known that NeXT would ultimately lead him back to Apple, but his faith in the flow of life, allowed him to return with fresh perspective, creativity, and resilience. In the same way, Lily found herself at a crossroads, feeling lost and uncertain of the next step, but finally allowing herself to trust the unfolding path. She wasn't stuck in the past anymore, clinging to a career or identity that no longer served her. She learned to trust the flow, not knowing exactly where it would take her, but knowing that it was exactly where she was meant to be. Trusting life's timing, letting go of the need for perfection. The key to living in the flow is recognizing that life has its own timing. We often feel the urge to force things, to rush outcomes, to push and push until the universe gives us what we want. But in doing so, we ignore the deeper truth that everything is unfolding according to a greater plan, one that is far bigger than our own limited view. Lily realized that trusting life's timing was a practice of patience and acceptance. She stopped rushing her progress and started embracing each moment, each experience, each step, even when it didn't look the way she had imagined. The career she had once clung to, the relationship she had worked so hard to preserve, none of these things were going to happen on her timeline. They would unfold when they were meant to. And in the meantime, Lily's job was to be present, to show up, and to trust that every moment had something to offer. There is an extraordinary beauty in trusting the timing of life. Eckhart Tolle, a renowned spiritual teacher, wrote, "The moment you stop clinging to the past or fearing the future, the present moment becomes your ally." Lily began to see that by letting go of her expectations, she opened herself up to the possibilities that were always around her, just waiting to be seen. Releasing attachment to outcomes, a transformational practice. What often keeps us from trusting life's flow is our attachment to outcomes. We hold on to the idea that things must turn out a certain way for us to feel satisfied. But the moment we release that attachment, something truly transformational happens. You only lose what you cling to, said Buddha. Lily found that the more she released attachment to specific outcomes, the more freedom she gained. She stopped fighting life's imperfections and began embracing what is, trusting that everything she needed would come at the right time, in the right form. In her career, Lily stopped trying to force her success in the way she had imagined. She had always believed that success was a straight path, a predictable route of promotions, recognition, and milestones. But when she stopped clinging to that vision, she realized that true success wasn't a destination, it was a journey. And in that journey, she found herself more fulfilled than ever before, not because things had turned out perfectly, but because she had let go of needing them to. The power of presence. Living with trust and surrender. It is in the present moment that we find the ultimate expression of trust. When we stop trying to control everything and instead practice being fully present, we unlock the true potential of each moment. Be here now, as Ram Dass beautifully said. This simple yet powerful practice of living in the present, of letting go of past regrets and future anxieties, is what allows us to truly experience life. For Lily, the practice of being present was the final key to unlocking peace. She had spent so much time planning for the future, but now she could finally appreciate the beauty of the now. She didn't need to know exactly what was coming next. She didn't need to figure everything out. All she needed to do was show up, fully, completely, and with trust that life was guiding her exactly where she needed to be. Trusting the flow, the dance of life. When Lily learned to trust the flow of life, she saw that life wasn't something to conquer. It wasn't something to control or fix. Life was a dance, sometimes graceful, sometimes clumsy, but always moving. It was about joining the dance, rather than fighting against it. And this is where Lily found her greatest lesson. By trusting life's flow, she stopped fighting for control and began to experience life with ease and peace. She stopped running after the things she thought would bring her happiness and began to see that happiness was found in the present moment. She was no longer a slave to fear and anxiety, constantly grasping for an ideal future. Instead, she lived in trust, knowing that everything would unfold as it was meant to. When you let go, life begins to meet you where you truly are. The greatest gift of letting go is the freedom it brings. It's the freedom to stop fighting against life, to stop clinging to past hurts, past failures, and past expectations. It's the freedom to trust that life is unfolding exactly as it should, and that you don't need to control it to find peace. Lily's journey has been one of trust, surrender, and peace. By releasing her grip on life's outcomes, she finally found the freedom she had been searching for. And now, you too can begin this journey. Trust the flow of life, and watch as everything begins to fall into place. If you found peace and clarity in this story, don't forget to subscribe. By joining this journey of growth and transformation, you'll unlock more insights into living a life of peace, freedom, and trust. The paradox of resistance. In a world that constantly demands more, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that more effort equals more success. We've been taught that in order to achieve something in life, we must work tirelessly, fight for our dreams, and never let up. The message is clear. Success comes from hard work. But there's a paradox here. What if effort and control aren't always the path to peace or success? What if the harder we push, the further we are from the very thing we seek? This is the paradox of resistance. The more we try to control and force things into existence, the more we push against the natural flow of life, and the more exhausted we become. Life doesn't operate in a vacuum, nor does it follow the precise timeline or structure that we often want to impose upon it. The tighter we hold onto something, the more likely we are to lose it. Let's look at Lily, the protagonist of this journey, who had spent years pushing, striving, and fighting for control. She thought that the more she fought for her dreams, the more she would achieve. She controlled every aspect of her life, her career, her relationships, her self-image. But the harder she tried, the more frustration and exhaustion followed. She was constantly disappointed when things didn't unfold as planned, and she felt stuck in an endless cycle of striving and overthinking. One day, while sitting by the edge of Lake Michigan, Lily had an epiphany. It was a quiet moment. The breeze was soft, the water gently rippling, and the sun casting a warm glow across the lake. In that moment, Lily realized that her efforts were not the problem. It was her attachment to specific outcomes, her need to control every situation, that was causing her pain. It was in this moment that Lily began to understand the deep truth of the path of least resistance. True peace doesn't come from forcing life. It comes from flowing with it. The power of letting go. There is a unique kind of power in letting go. It's not weakness, but a profound wisdom that allows us to experience life as it is, without trying to impose our will on every situation. When we let go, we release our need for perfection and certainty. We stop trying to shape everything into a form that suits us and instead allow life to unfold naturally. Lily's journey of letting go. Lily's journey of letting go wasn't easy. She had spent so many years managing every detail, worrying about every outcome, that the thought of releasing control seemed terrifying. Would everything fall apart? Would she lose everything if she stopped trying so hard? But the more she reflected on her life, the more she realized that her life was a series of forced efforts, trying to meet external expectations and achieve success on her terms. When she finally surrendered to the flow of life, something extraordinary happened. She started seeing the world differently. She stopped grasping for certainty in every moment and instead allowed herself to simply be in the present. She stopped obsessing over things she couldn't control, such as how people perceived her or how her career would unfold. Instead, she started trusting that life would guide her where she needed to go, without the need to force it. This shift from force to flow wasn't about passivity. It was about learning to trust in the process of life's unfolding. Letting go allowed Lily to live more fully, to embrace each moment without worrying about the next. She gave herself permission to release her grip on the need for everything to be perfect. And in doing so, she found peace. She found a sense of freedom she hadn't known in years. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. A Lao Tzu, real-life story, The Power of Surrender, Oprah Winfrey's Journey. The power of surrender isn't just a philosophical idea. It's a real, transformative practice. One of the most well-known examples of someone who embraced the path of least resistance and experienced profound success is Oprah Winfrey. Oprah's story is one of overcoming adversity, but more importantly, it's about learning to trust the flow of life. Oprah grew up in poverty, faced abuse, and overcame many challenges to rise to the top. But it wasn't until she learned the power of surrender that her true success began to unfold. Oprah's breakthrough came when she stopped fighting for control over her career and began to trust her own instincts. She stopped trying to conform to external expectations and embraced her own voice, her own journey, and her authenticity. Oprah's success isn't just in her career achievements. It's in her ability to surrender to the natural flow of life. She understood that success doesn't come from controlling every detail, but from trusting the path that life lays out. She let go of perfection, let go of the need for approval, and allowed her life to unfold on its own terms. And in that space of surrender, she found greater freedom, greater creativity, and greater peace. The courage to flow with life's rhythm. Go with the flow, don't push the river. Anonymous. Going with the flow of life takes courage. It's not always easy to release our grip on the things that we think will bring us peace and fulfillment. The hardest part of letting go is relinquishing control, but the most rewarding part is the freedom we gain once we do. Lily's journey wasn't just about letting go of her career or relationships. It was about letting go of her ego, her attachment to her image, her ideas of who she should be, and her fear of being unworthy without external validation. She had spent so much of her life seeking approval, pushing for success, and striving for perfection that she had lost touch with her true self. But once she learned to trust, to flow, and to release her attachments, she began to reconnect with her authentic self. And this shift didn't just affect her internal world, it impacted her external reality as well. When Lily began to trust life's flow, she found that opportunities began to align with her natural rhythm. Relationships that once felt forced became more effortless. Career paths that she had once pursued with obsession began to present themselves organically. Life was no longer something she had to fight for. It became a dance, where she moved gracefully with the rhythm, without trying to control the tempo. The spiritual shift, trusting life's timing. Everything happens at the right time, not a moment too soon and not a moment too late. Anonymous. Life has its own rhythm and timing. And often, the biggest source of our frustration comes from wanting things to happen on our timeline. We are constantly trying to push life into the shape we want, setting deadlines, creating rigid plans, and expecting everything to go according to our agenda. But when we are unable to control the outcome, we experience disappointment and frustration. Lily had always been driven by deadlines, and the belief that success was about achieving things by a certain age or in a certain way. But as she surrendered to the flow of life, she began to notice that life had its own perfect timing. She started to let go of the anxiety that came with forcing things into place, and instead trusted that life would unfold in its own time. This spiritual shift happened slowly for Lily. At first, she was hesitant. Could she really let go of her carefully planned future? Could she really trust that life would provide for her, even without the constant pushing? But when she began to see how surrender brought clarity, peace, and alignment, she realized that trusting life's timing was not only liberating but empowering. Things always fall into place when we stop forcing them. The wisdom of letting go, finding peace in surrender. At its core, the path of least resistance is about trust. Trust that everything is unfolding as it should, and that we don't have to control every detail. The more we try to manipulate and force outcomes, the more we experience frustration. But when we let go, we step into a space of peace. This peace doesn't come from achieving the next milestone, but from the understanding that we are enough as we are, right now. Lily's breakthrough came when she accepted that life is full of uncertainty, and that's okay. She didn't need to know what was coming next, and she didn't need to have all the answers. What she needed was to trust that she was on the right path, whatever it looked like. Trusting the flow meant surrendering the need for everything to look perfect and allowing herself to experience life fully, in its unpredictable beauty. Letting go is not about losing, it's about gaining. Gaining peace, gaining freedom, gaining the wisdom to trust life's natural flow. The more we release our need to control, the more we open ourselves to the beauty and serenity of simply being. The path of least resistance is not about passivity. It's about consciously choosing to trust life's rhythm, to trust that every moment has meaning, and to trust that everything is unfolding as it should. When you stop pushing, you begin to experience the magic of life's flow. Opportunities appear, relationships deepen, and you become the person you were always meant to be. You move with life rather than against it. If you're ready to embrace the flow of life, trust its timing and stop forcing things to happen, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Join us in continuing this journey of trust, peace, and self-discovery. There is a quiet truth that reverberates through the lives of every one of us. Nothing lasts forever. From the most fleeting of moments to the grandest of milestones, everything is in a constant state of change. This simple truth, impermanence, holds the key to understanding how we can finally release our hold on life and begin living in a way that brings true peace. For much of her life, Lily struggled with this concept. She had fought so hard to keep things in place, to make life conform to her plans, to ensure that everything stayed as it was. Control had been her refuge. The idea that things could change, or that she might lose the things she loved most, terrified her. So she clung to them hard. The more she grasped, the more she resisted the natural ebb and flow of life, and the more pain she experienced. It wasn't until she embraced the truth of impermanence that things began to make sense. She realized that her fear of change, her obsession with holding onto what was familiar, was the very thing that was causing her pain. The tight grip she had on her identity, her job, her relationships, and even her own ideas of success was suffocating her. She had forgotten the one constant in life: change. Everything in life changes whether we want it to or not. The seasons shift, people come and go, careers evolve, relationships dissolve, and even the very thoughts we hold dear fade into the background of our memory. And yet we cling to what we know, desperate to keep everything as it is. We resist the inevitable, believing that if we hold on tight enough, we can stop time, or at least freeze it for a while. But what if impermanence wasn't something to fear? What if it was the very wisdom we needed to find peace? The fear of change, how it holds us back. For most of us, change is not something we embrace, it's something we avoid. The idea of losing something or someone feels like a threat. We fear the unknown, the unpredictability, the uncertainty that comes with letting go. It's only natural. We don't want to face the discomfort that change brings. But here's the paradox. The more we fear change, the more we resist it. And the more we resist it, the more we suffer. Resistance leads to frustration, to stress, to anxiety, to burnout. We tie ourselves up in knots, trying to prevent change, trying to hold onto something that is already slipping away. And in doing so, we prevent ourselves from experiencing the freedom that comes with accepting impermanence. Lily experienced this firsthand. She was constantly fighting against the current of life, trying to keep everything from slipping away. She fought for every outcome, tried to shape every situation, and clung to relationships and goals with all her might. But it was only when she faced the truth of impermanence that she began to see how much energy she had wasted in resistance. When Lily finally let go of the need to control, she realized that life didn't fall apart, it shifted. And in that shift, she found herself more aligned with the flow of life than she ever had been before. She no longer felt the need to hold onto everything, to make it all stay the same. Instead, she began to trust in the natural rhythms of life, allowing them to guide her without the fear of loss. The wisdom of impermanence, finding peace in change. Impermanence is a fundamental truth in Buddhist philosophy. It is the understanding that everything is in constant flux, nothing stays the same. The Buddha taught that attachment to anything that is impermanent is the cause of suffering. When we hold on to things, whether it's a relationship, a job, a sense of identity, or a dream, we are clinging to something that is ultimately fleeting. And that attachment brings pain because in the end, everything changes. Change is the only constant in life, as Heraclitus once said. And the moment we can truly accept this, the moment we stop resisting the flow of change, we can step into a space of peace and freedom. Lily began to understand that her need for control wasn't serving her. It was keeping her locked in a cycle of fear and anxiety. She learned that the way to find peace was not in holding tight to the things she couldn't keep, but in trusting that life would give her what she needed in its own time. She thought back to the moment when she had let go of her job, the one she had worked so hard for, the one she had attached so much of her identity to. When she lost it, she thought it would be the end of her world. But in the end, it was only the beginning of a new chapter. By accepting the change, she had made space for new opportunities to come into her life, opportunities she never would have been able to see if she had stayed attached to the old. The beauty of impermanence, real-life examples of letting go. The wisdom of impermanence can be seen in many areas of life, and there are countless stories of individuals who have found peace by letting go of their attachment to the past. One such story is that of Maya Angelou, the beloved poet, author, and civil rights activist. Angelou's life was marked by struggle, loss, and profound change. But rather than clinging to the past, she embraced it. She allowed herself to learn and grow from every experience. Angelou once said, "We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated." She faced many challenges in her life, including the trauma of sexual abuse, the loss of loved ones, and the challenges of being a woman of color in a racially divided society. But through it all, she let go of her pain and found healing. She understood that life is impermanent, and by embracing change, she was able to move forward. Angelou's story is a testament to the power of letting go, not of the people or experiences that shaped her, but of the fear and attachment that could have held her back. She lived fully in the present, trusting the flow of her life. And in doing so, she created a legacy that continues to inspire generations. Another real-life example is Nelson Mandela, whose journey of liberation and forgiveness is one of the most powerful stories of detachment and impermanence. After spending 27 years in prison for fighting against apartheid in South Africa, Mandela emerged not bitter or vengeful, but ready to forgive. He understood that holding onto past grudges would only perpetuate the cycle of suffering. By letting go of his anger, he was able to lead South Africa through one of the most profound transitions in modern history, toward freedom and peace. Mandela's ability to accept the impermanence of his suffering and embrace forgiveness changed the course of history. His story teaches us that even the most painful experiences can lead to healing, but only if we are willing to release our attachment to the past. The freedom in letting go of the past. The past is a place of reference, not residence. Anonymous. One of the hardest things to let go of is the past. We often hold onto memories, experiences, and regrets as though they define us. But as Lily began to realize, the past doesn't have to define who we are today. The past is simply a collection of memories, each holding a lesson, but it is not the place where we must live. As Lily worked to release her attachment to the past, she felt a sense of lightness that she hadn't known before. She no longer identified herself by the mistakes she had made, the people who had hurt her, or the dreams that hadn't come true. She understood that the past is only a story we tell ourselves, and we have the power to rewrite that story every day. She started to focus on the present moment, embracing each day as it came without judgment. She stopped reliving old hurts and instead allowed herself to forgive, not only others but herself. In doing so, she discovered the power of healing, of moving forward, and of embracing the future with open arms. In the end, the greatest gift of impermanence is that it teaches us to live fully in the present. We no longer feel burdened by the weight of the past or anxious about the future. Instead, we can experience life as it is, in all its fluidity, knowing that each moment is a gift. Lily's journey taught her that letting go isn't about abandoning what we love. It's about releasing the need for control, for perfection, and for certainty. It's about accepting that everything is always changing, and in that change lies the beauty of life. The impermanence of life is what makes it so precious. If everything were to remain the same, if we could hold on to things forever, we would lose the wonder of growth, of change, and of the unknown. This too shall pass. It's a simple saying, but one that carries immense weight. When we learn to embrace the impermanence of life, we release the fear of change. We stop resisting what is, and instead, we flow with it. And in that flow, we find peace, freedom, and joy. Lily's transformation was profound. She learned that the key to peace wasn't in control, it was in letting go. The more she trusted the flow of life, the more she was able to experience it in all its beauty. Impermanence became her greatest teacher, showing her that everything changes, and that change is not something to fear but something to embrace. When we surrender to the flow of life, when we stop resisting and start trusting, we find that everything falls into place, as it was always meant to. The reluctance to accept. Acceptance, at first glance, can seem like an easy concept. We hear it often, just accept things the way they are. It's a phrase that's tossed around casually, almost like an afterthought when we're going through difficult times. But when it comes to our own lives, to the things we truly care about, the relationships, the choices we've made, the path we've walked, acceptance feels like a distant and elusive goal. The truth is, accepting life as it is doesn't always come naturally. We resist, we fight, we argue with reality, thinking that somehow if we just push harder, we'll change it. We think that if we explain ourselves, control the narrative, or force our will, we can make life bend to our desires. But what if that's not how peace is found? What if it's in the surrender to life's flow and the deep acceptance of what already is? Lily, much like all of us, spent much of her life struggling with acceptance. She clung to a version of herself that was always trying to be better, better at her job, better in her relationships, better at achieving her goals. Her self-worth was tied to what she had done, what she had achieved, and who she was trying to become. She couldn't accept that sometimes the best way forward was not through more effort, but through rest, reflection, and most importantly, acceptance of herself as she was. The first step, accepting the present moment. The first major step in Lily's journey to acceptance came when she was able to stop fighting against the present moment. We all know that life doesn't always go according to plan. The job we wanted, the relationship that ended, the vision we had for our future, it doesn't always unfold the way we imagined it would. And in those moments, we tend to react in ways that perpetuate our suffering. We push. We try harder. We resist what is happening in front of us because we think that somehow, if we just fight a little more, we can change things. But as Lily learned, resistance creates more pain. The more we fight against life, the more we exhaust ourselves and the less peace we experience. Instead of trying to control the uncontrollable, what if we accepted the present moment as it is? The present moment is a gift. That's why it's called the present. Deepak Chopra. Lily realized that true peace wasn't in the future she envisioned or the past she couldn't change. It was right here, in the present moment. Once she started accepting the present as it was, everything began to shift. She stopped trying to control every aspect of her life and allowed herself to simply be. Lily practiced living in the present, observing life without judgment, without rushing through it. The small moments, like her morning coffee or a walk in the park, became more significant and meaningful. When she accepted the present moment fully, she found that her mind was no longer burdened by regret for the past or anxiety for the future. She simply lived. The challenge of self-acceptance. While accepting the present moment was a big step, the true challenge for Lily, and for many of us, was accepting herself. For years, Lily had been her harshest critic. She held herself to impossible standards, constantly striving for perfection, never feeling like she was enough. She was always seeking validation from others, thinking that if she could just prove herself worthy enough, she would be accepted and loved. But the more she tried to prove her worth, the more she felt inadequate. She believed that her value was tied to her accomplishments, her successes, and the roles she played in other people's lives. She had never truly accepted herself, the raw, imperfect, beautifully flawed person that she was. She thought that once she achieved X, once she reached a certain milestone, she could then accept herself. But self-acceptance wasn't something that could be earned. It was something that had to be embraced right now, regardless of her achievements or failures. In the midst of her struggles, Lily came across a powerful quote by Carl Jung. "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." It was a turning point. She realized that self-acceptance wasn't about changing herself to meet some external standard. It was about embracing who she already was, without the pressure to conform or be better. Self-acceptance meant loving herself fully, imperfections and all, without seeking validation from anyone or anything. Real life story. The power of self-acceptance, Maya Angelou. One of the most profound examples of self-acceptance comes from Maya Angelou, the celebrated poet and author. Angelou had an incredibly tumultuous childhood and faced numerous hardships, including being sexually abused at a young age. But despite these challenges, she found a way to accept herself and her past, transforming her pain into wisdom and strength. Angelou once said, "I am not accepting the idea that there is anything wrong with me. I have lived a long time and learned the hard way that the only true security is in accepting who you are, right here, right now." This profound understanding of self-acceptance guided Angelou through some of life's most difficult moments. She had every reason to let her pain define her, but she chose instead to embrace her story, every part of it. She didn't need to be perfect. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Angelou's wisdom came from the understanding that self-acceptance is the gateway to freedom, and it was in fully accepting who she was that she was able to create such a remarkable life. Like Angelou, Lily had to embrace her true self, imperfections and all. She began to practice this daily, looking in the mirror and affirming that she was enough, just as she was. She didn't have to change herself to meet other people's standards. She could finally let go of the constant pressure to be someone else. She was worthy of love, respect, and happiness, exactly as she was, and this understanding began to transform her life in profound ways. The role of acceptance in relationships. Perhaps one of the hardest aspects of acceptance is learning to accept others, especially when those people don't meet our expectations. For years, Lily had tried to shape her relationships into a form that was acceptable to her. She expected her partner, her friends, and even her colleagues to act according to her vision of how things should be. When they didn't, frustration set in, and she found herself feeling rejected or misunderstood. But when Lily began practicing self-acceptance, she realized that true acceptance of others came from a place of love and non-judgment. She didn't need to change anyone. She just needed to accept them as they were. She needed to release her attachment to the idea that people had to behave a certain way for her to feel happy. This practice of acceptance allowed Lily's relationships to deepen. She was no longer trying to control how others acted or expected them to meet her needs. Instead, she learned to approach her relationships with an open heart, embracing people as they were, with all their flaws, all their struggles, and all their beauty. And in doing so, she found that her connections with others became more authentic, more honest, and more fulfilling. The courage to accept change. Perhaps the most difficult aspect of acceptance is accepting the inevitable change in life. Change often brings with it a sense of loss, and with that loss comes grief. Whether it's the end of a relationship, the loss of a job, or the shifting of priorities, change forces us to confront what we can't control. Lily had to confront the fact that the relationship she had worked so hard to keep together wasn't meant to last. At first, the idea of letting go felt like failure. She thought she could fix it if she just tried harder, if she changed herself or her partner. But when she finally let go and accepted the impermanence of the relationship, she found peace. She grieved, but she didn't hold on to the pain. She accepted the loss as part of her journey, trusting that the right relationship would come in its own time. Change is often met with resistance, but acceptance of change brings freedom. It allows us to embrace the new opportunities and lessons that come with it. Everything changes when you change your perspective, said Wayne Dyer. And Lily realized that once she accepted change, she didn't have to fight it, she could flow with it. Acceptance is not a one-time practice, it's a lifelong journey. It's the willingness to accept ourselves, to accept others, and to accept life as it unfolds. Acceptance is not about giving up, it's about releasing resistance. It's about acknowledging that we can't control everything, and that's okay. It's about trusting that life will unfold in the way it's meant to, and that everything we need is already within us. Lily's journey of acceptance was transformative. It freed her from the grip of fear, regret, and frustration. It allowed her to live authentically without trying to force life into her expectations. And in doing so, she discovered the peace that had eluded her for so long. By accepting what is, she was able to move forward with greater clarity and joy. She didn't need life to be perfect, she just needed to accept it. Acceptance, at its core, is a gift we give ourselves. It's the ability to let go of the weight of expectation and the burden of control. It's the realization that peace comes not from what we have or don't have, but from our ability to embrace the present moment, just as it is. The struggle of holding on. We've all been there. The relentless pursuit of something we thought would bring us happiness. We hold on, clinging desperately to people, ideas, expectations, and outcomes. It feels safe, doesn't it? When you control things, you feel as though you're creating your destiny, shaping your future, and protecting yourself from the unknown. But there's a paradox in this belief. The harder we hold on, the more we risk losing. This paradox is what Lily discovered on her journey. For so long, she fought against the very flow of life. She fought for a relationship that wasn't working. She fought for a career that no longer fulfilled her. She fought for an identity she thought was necessary to validate her existence. And the more she fought, the more she found herself emotionally exhausted, disillusioned, and stuck. But it wasn't until Lily stopped fighting, until she chose to release the grip on everything she had been holding so tightly to, that she began to experience life's true rewards, rewards she hadn't even known were possible. It was in the letting go that she found the peace and freedom she had been desperately seeking, the freedom of releasing control. For much of her life, Lily had believed that control was the key to finding peace. She thought that if she could just manage every situation perfectly, she could avoid disappointment and prevent failure. But this constant need for control came at a high price. Anxiety, fear, and stress began to dominate her life. She spent so much energy trying to manage the uncontrollable aspects of life that she didn't realize that the freedom she was seeking wasn't in controlling everything. It was in letting go. Lily's story is not unique. We've all been there, feeling as though we have to do it all, make it all perfect, and never let go of our goals or dreams. But letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means releasing the need to control every outcome, accepting that there are some things outside of our control, and trusting that we are capable of handling whatever life brings. When Lily learned to surrender her need for perfection and control, she began to feel a deep sense of relief. It was like taking a long, deep breath after being underwater for far too long. In the moment of letting go, she realized that the weight she had been carrying was never hers to bear. The power of trusting the process. Trust is at the core of letting go. When we let go, we are, in essence, trusting the process of life. We are releasing the fear of the unknown and accepting that life will unfold as it is meant to. But how do we trust the process when life feels uncertain? How do we surrender when it feels like we have so much to lose? Trust the process. Everything is unfolding exactly as it should. These words became Lily's mantra. She wrote them on a sticky note and placed it on her desk. Every time she felt the urge to control, to worry, to micromanage, she would look at the note and take a breath. Trusting the process doesn't mean sitting passively and waiting for things to happen. It means moving forward with faith that you are on the right path, regardless of the bumps along the way. Real-life stories abound of people who surrendered to life's process and were rewarded in ways they never expected. Consider J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Before her books became the global phenomenon they are today, Rowling was a struggling single mother living on welfare. She faced rejection after rejection from publishers, but instead of giving up, she trusted the process. She kept writing, kept believing in her work, and eventually she found the success that had eluded her for so long. Her story is a testament to the power of perseverance and trust. The beauty of uncertainty. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. John Lennon. Lily had always been someone who lived by a schedule, always planning the next step, always preparing for what might come. But life, as it so often does, had a way of throwing curveballs. And it was in those unexpected moments, those instances when life didn't follow her plans, that she began to see the true beauty of uncertainty. Uncertainty can be terrifying. We like to know what's coming next. We want control over our future, over our destiny. But the truth is, uncertainty is where the magic happens. It's in the unknown that we find the opportunity for growth, for creativity, and for new possibilities. When we let go of the need for certainty, we give ourselves permission to step into the unknown and see what life has to offer. Lily learned that uncertainty wasn't something to be feared. It was something to embrace. It was the space where new ideas could take root, where relationships could evolve, and where unexpected opportunities could emerge. Letting go of certainty meant stepping into a space where anything was possible, and that in itself was incredibly freeing. The paradox of letting go. The more you release, the more you gain. There's a paradox in letting go. The more you release, the more you gain. The more Lily surrendered, the more she began to receive. She had spent so much time clinging to her plans, her career, and her identity that she hadn't realized how much she was missing out on. By letting go, she made room for something new. And that new thing wasn't always what she had expected, but it was always exactly what she needed. The more you let go, the more you receive. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's a fundamental truth in life. When you stop forcing things into place, you create the space for the right things to come to you. By detaching from the need for approval, validation, and perfection, Lily made space for greater joy, peace, and abundance. She began to see that life was constantly offering her opportunities, but she had to be willing to let go of her rigid plans and trust that those opportunities would arrive in their own time. Real life story. The power of letting go, the life of Steve Jobs. Letting go can be one of the most transformative experiences of our lives, but it often requires a shift in perspective, a shift from attachment to detachment. Steve Jobs, the legendary co-founder of Apple, provides one of the most powerful examples of this shift in his life. After being ousted from the company he had founded, Jobs was faced with the daunting task of letting go of the dream he had spent years building. But instead of fighting the situation, he did something remarkable. He surrendered. Jobs allowed himself to step away from the world of Apple, and in doing so, he created XD and Pixar, both of which laid the groundwork for his later return to Apple. His time away from Apple wasn't a setback. It was a recharge, a moment of reflection and recalibration. Jobs came back to Apple with fresh vision and determination, and the company he founded went on to become one of the most successful and influential companies in the world. Jobs' journey teaches us that letting go of what we think we want opens us up to even greater possibilities. It was only when Jobs released his attachment to Apple, to his identity as its founder, and to his ego that he was able to create something truly extraordinary. His story is a testament to the power of surrender and the unexpected rewards of letting go, living in the present, embracing the here and now. The present moment is the only time over which we have control. With it in hand, one of the most profound rewards of letting go is the ability to live fully in the present moment. When we let go of the past and stop worrying about the future, we open ourselves up to the full experience of now. This is where true joy, peace, and clarity reside, right here, right now. Lily's life began to shift dramatically as she embraced the present moment. She no longer rushed through life, checking boxes, and trying to make everything fit into her narrow vision. Instead, she allowed herself to be present in every experience, every conversation, and every emotion. She stopped living in the future and started to truly experience the beauty of each moment as it unfolded. When we live in the present, we stop living in fear of the unknown and regret of the past. We become fully alive in the present, appreciating everything that it offers. The rewards of this are immeasurable: peace, clarity, joy, and the ability to fully connect with others. The more we release, the more we gain. The more we let go of control, the more we experience peace, love, and freedom. By surrendering, we make room for life to bring us what we truly need. Not what we think we want, but what we truly need for our growth and happiness. Lily's journey showed her that letting go was not about giving up. It was about trusting. Trusting that life would unfold as it was meant to, and that by surrendering to the flow, she could experience all the rewards of a life lived fully. Peace, freedom, and authenticity are the natural byproducts of surrender. If you're holding on to something, ask yourself, what would it feel like to let go? What would it feel like to trust that everything will fall into place exactly as it's meant to, without you having to control it? The unexpected rewards of letting go are waiting for you. Trust the flow of life, release the grip, and watch as everything aligns beautifully. Life is ready to meet you. Are you ready to meet it? The power of authenticity. In a world that constantly tells us who we should be, what we should look like, and how we should behave, the pursuit of authenticity can feel like a quiet rebellion. We are told from a young age that success, love, and approval come from being someone else, someone who fits the mold, who meets expectations, who conforms to the standards set by society. We are often given a script to follow, a role to play, and yet something in us begins to rebel against it. There's a part of us that knows we are meant for something more, a life lived in truth, in alignment with our deepest selves. But for most of us, finding that truth is not easy. For most of us, being ourselves feels like a journey, one that is filled with doubt, uncertainty, and at times fear. The fear of rejection, the fear of not measuring up, the fear of stepping out of the shadows and into our own light. For years, Lily struggled with this fear. She had spent much of her life trying to be the person everyone expected her to be. She conformed to societal norms, played by the rules, and tried to meet the standards of success and happiness that were handed to her. She built her identity around the things that society valued: her career, her relationship status, her achievements. But no matter how hard she tried, something was always missing. She felt like an actor in her own life, playing a role that wasn't really hers to begin with. Lily didn't feel like herself. She was simply trying to be someone she thought the world wanted her to be. It wasn't until she began to let go of the expectations, the judgments, and the roles she had been playing, that she began to realize something profound. The freedom she had been searching for was not in achieving more, but in simply being herself. The moment she stopped trying to be the person others wanted her to be, she began to discover who she really was. The journey of self-discovery. Self-discovery is a journey, one that doesn't come with a clear map or a set of instructions. It's a process of peeling back the layers that have built up over the years, layers of expectation, fear, doubt, and conditioned beliefs. It's about uncovering the person who has always been there, just waiting to emerge. Lily began to see her life through a new lens. She realized that she had been living according to someone else's script, someone else's version of who she should be. She had been seeking approval, validation, and success from external sources, but she had never truly sought her own approval. She had never taken the time to ask herself, who am I really? What do I want? What does my heart desire? As she embarked on this journey of self-discovery, Lily began to explore the things that truly lit her up, the activities, the passions, and the ideas that she had suppressed for so long. She had spent years trying to fit into a career that was not aligned with her soul. She had built a life based on what she thought was expected of her, not what she was truly called to do. And so she began to unravel those layers of self-doubt and fear, one by one. Each step of her journey was marked by moments of discomfort. She had to face the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, and the fear of stepping into the unknown. But each time she faced these fears, she grew stronger. She learned to trust her intuition and inner wisdom, rather than looking outside of herself for answers. Slowly but surely, she began to align her life with the person she was meant to be. The importance of letting go of external validation. One of the greatest obstacles to living authentically is the constant desire for external validation. We live in a world that constantly evaluates us based on our achievements, appearance, and social status. We are told that our worth is determined by how much we have, how successful we are, and how others perceive us. But this external validation is fleeting. No matter how much we achieve, it never seems to be enough. For Lily, the need for validation had been a significant part of her life. She was constantly measuring herself against others, seeking approval, and seeking recognition for her hard work and accomplishments. She had built her identity on what others thought of her, rather than on who she truly was. She had based her worth on her job title, her relationships, and the things she had accumulated. But when she began to let go of the need for external validation, something miraculous happened. She began to feel at peace with herself. She realized that true worth comes from within. It doesn't come from the approval of others, nor does it come from achieving external milestones. True worth is inherent. It is about accepting yourself fully, as you are, without needing the constant approval of others. As Lily continued on her journey of self-discovery, she realized that the only validation she needed was her own. She stopped seeking approval from her boss, her friends, or her family. Instead, she began to validate herself by following her passions, trusting her decisions, and being true to herself. She found that when she no longer sought external validation, she was able to connect more deeply with her true purpose and her authentic self. The courage to be authentic. Being authentic in a world that constantly pressures us to fit into boxes and meet expectations is no easy task. It takes courage. It takes the courage to show up as your true self, even when the world around you doesn't fully understand or accept you. It takes the courage to speak your truth, even when it's difficult, and to follow your own path, even when it feels uncertain. Lily learned this lesson firsthand. As she began to live more authentically, she encountered moments of doubt. There were times when she felt like she was stepping off the beaten path, and she questioned whether she was making the right decision. But the more she lived from her true self, the more confident she became. She realized that authenticity was the key to a fulfilling and meaningful life. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Lily began to understand that authenticity is not about being perfect. It's about embracing your flaws, your vulnerabilities, and your unique qualities. It's about being honest with yourself and with others, and having the courage to show up as you are, without apologies. The more Lily lived authentically, the more she experienced the rewards of being true to herself. Her relationships became more genuine, her career began to align with her passions, and her inner peace deepened. She no longer felt like an outsider in her own life. She felt at home in herself, and that was the greatest gift she could give herself. Real-life story. The Power of Authenticity, Brené Brown. One of the most inspiring examples of living authentically comes from Brené Brown, a research professor at the University of Houston who has become famous for her work on vulnerability, shame, and courage. Brown's research has shown that true connection and courage come from embracing our vulnerabilities and being authentic, rather than trying to conform to societal expectations or hide our imperfections. In her best-selling book, The Gifts of Imperfection, Brown talks about how letting go of perfectionism and embracing our true selves is the key to living a fulfilling life. She writes, "You are imperfect. You are wired for struggle, but you are worthy of love and belonging." Brown's work is a testament to the power of embracing our imperfections and living authentically, without the pressure of meeting external standards or seeking validation. Brown's courage to show up as herself, vulnerabilities and all, has inspired millions of people around the world to do the same. She teaches us that authenticity is not about perfection, it's about acceptance. Acceptance of ourselves as we are, with all our flaws, and learning to embrace the beauty of our imperfection. The journey of acceptance, letting go of the fear of judgment. A huge part of authenticity is the freedom to let go of the fear of judgment. So often, we hold ourselves back from being our true selves because we fear what others will think. We fear being rejected, criticized, or misunderstood. But the more we let go of the fear of judgment, the more we allow ourselves to be who we truly are. Lily realized that when she stopped worrying about how others perceived her, she became more free to express herself. She no longer felt the need to please others or seek approval. Instead, she embraced the idea that her worth was not determined by the opinions of others. It was determined by her own sense of self-worth. Lily found that acceptance of herself, without fear of judgment, was the key to unlocking her true potential. She stopped hiding behind masks and started showing up in the world as authentically as she could. And in doing so, she discovered a freedom that allowed her to pursue her passions, her relationships, and her work with newfound confidence and joy. Living authentically is not about seeking perfection. It's about embracing who you truly are with all your flaws, imperfections, and strengths. It's about trusting that you are enough, just as you are. It's about living a life that is true to your deepest values and desires, without being swayed by the opinions of others or the pressures of society. Lily's journey to authenticity was one of self-discovery. It was a process of letting go of the fear of judgment, of releasing the need for external validation, and of embracing the freedom that comes from simply being yourself. In the end, authenticity brings peace. It brings a deep connection with yourself and with others, and it opens the door to a life that is more fulfilling, more joyful, and more aligned with your true self. So ask yourself, what would it feel like to truly be yourself, without fear, without the pressure to conform, without the need for validation? What if you stopped trying to be someone else and embraced the unique person you were meant to be? The freedom to live authentically is the greatest gift you can give yourself. It's the gift of peace, the gift of love, and the gift of being fully alive in the moment, in the way only you can. And that is the path to true fulfillment. Lily's journey from resistance to surrender was not a simple one. It was a process of unraveling years of built-up expectations, self-imposed pressures, and deeply held fears. She was like many of us, constantly fighting against the flow of life, trying to control every aspect of her existence. Her life was carefully planned, meticulously structured, and yet, despite all her effort, something was always missing. She was chasing an ideal that was never hers to begin with, an ideal crafted by society, by other people's expectations, and by the fear that if she let go, everything would fall apart. The truth is, we all experience this on some level. We think that by clinging to people, relationships, careers, or a specific identity, we can protect ourselves from uncertainty. We fear change, and as a result, we fight against the natural rhythm of life. We spend years trying to control the uncontrollable, striving to avoid failure and disappointment. But in doing so, we end up trapping ourselves in a cycle of frustration, fear, and exhaustion. This was the life that Lily was living until she realized the simple, yet profound truth. When you let go, everything falls into place. Her breakthrough came when she acknowledged that her attachment to control was the very source of her suffering. It was when she finally chose to surrender, to release the need for perfection, and to trust that life would unfold as it should, that things began to shift. The moment she let go of her fears, her need for validation, and her need to control every outcome, she felt a sense of peace that had eluded her for so long. The power of letting go. Letting go is not an easy practice, and it wasn't an easy practice for Lily either. It took time, effort, and courage to stop clinging to the things she had spent years building her life around. She had spent so much of her energy trying to hold on to people, situations, and outcomes, fearing that without them, she would lose her sense of self. The job, the relationship, the perfect image, all of these became her anchors, and she believed that without them, she would sink. But in reality, they were the ones keeping her stuck. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean walking away from things that matter. Letting go means releasing attachment. It's about freeing yourself from the need for everything to go your way and trusting that life will unfold as it is meant to. It's about stopping the struggle and learning to trust the process, knowing that whatever is meant for you will find its way into your life without you forcing it. The paradox of letting go is that the more we release, the more we gain. The more Lily surrendered her tight grip on life's outcomes, the more space she created for new opportunities, relationships, and experiences to enter her life. By letting go of control, she made room for peace, and that peace allowed her to grow in ways she had never imagined. When we stop fighting against life, we align with the natural flow, and that flow leads us exactly where we need to go. The importance of trusting life's process. Throughout her journey, Lily realized the importance of trusting life's process. The fear of uncertainty was a constant companion, and at times it was overwhelming. She was afraid that without control, she would lose everything she held dear. But as she slowly started to release her grip on life's outcomes, she discovered that life has its own rhythm, its own pace, its own timing. Trusting the process means accepting that we can't control every detail. It's about letting go of our timelines and deadlines and allowing ourselves to flow with life's natural course. The more we resist, the more we suffer. The more we cling to our version of how things should be, the more we fight against life's natural unfolding. But when we trust that life is unfolding perfectly, even when we don't understand it, we free ourselves from the constant need for control. Lily's breakthrough came when she started trusting the timing of life. She realized that some things are meant to happen now, and others are meant to unfold later. It's not about rushing to the finish line or forcing every outcome into being. It's about living fully in each moment and allowing life to meet us where we are. The more she trusted life's timing, the more she found herself aligned with the path she was meant to walk. The healing power of surrender. One of the most significant lessons in Lily's journey was the healing power of surrender. For most of her life, she had fought against her circumstances, against the relationships that weren't working, against the job that no longer fulfilled her, and against the fear of not being enough. She believed that if she just pushed harder, everything would fall into place. But in her attempt to control every aspect of her life, she found herself exhausted and disconnected from her true self. Surrendering isn't about giving up. It's about accepting that some things are beyond our control. It's about yielding to life's flow, trusting that we are exactly where we need to be, and allowing ourselves to be led by the universe. It's about embracing the impermanence of life, understanding that everything changes, and we are a part of that change. Surrendering is the act of letting go of the need to control, and instead, embracing what is. For Lily, this surrender brought a deep sense of inner peace. She stopped pushing against life's challenges and started flowing with them. Life began to unfold naturally as she released the need to control every moment, every conversation, and every outcome. And with that surrender, she found herself more connected to herself and to the world around her. There is a powerful real-life example that beautifully encapsulates the transformative power of letting go. The story of Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple. Jobs' career trajectory was not linear. It was filled with ups and downs, unexpected twists, and profound lessons in letting go. In 1985, Jobs was ousted from the very company he had founded. It was a devastating moment for him, but instead of fighting against the circumstances, Jobs chose to let go of his attachment to Apple. He could have fought to reclaim his position, but instead, he embraced the idea of surrendering to what life had presented him. He went on to create NXT and Pixar, both of which played pivotal roles in his later return to Apple. What's most powerful about Jobs' story is that, instead of resisting his ouster from Apple, he allowed the change to take him in a new direction. When he finally returned to Apple in 1997, he brought a renewed sense of vision, creativity, and authenticity, leading the company to become one of the most successful in history. Jobs' ability to surrender control, to release his attachment to outcomes, and to trust life's process is a testament to the power of letting go. His success wasn't about holding on, it was about trusting the journey. The freedom to be yourself. The greatest reward of letting go is the freedom to be yourself. For so much of Lily's life, she had built her identity around external achievements, her career, her relationships, her possessions. But when she began to let go of her attachment to these things, she realized that true freedom came not from what she had or what she had accomplished, but from who she was. Living authentically means releasing the need to prove anything. It means accepting yourself as you are, without the pressure to conform to society's standards or expectations. It means being at peace with your imperfections and knowing that you are enough, just as you are. Lily's journey led her to self-acceptance, to the realization that her worth was never tied to external validation. She didn't need to prove herself to anyone. She began to live for herself, following her intuition and her true desires, rather than trying to meet the expectations of others. And as she did this, she found a sense of peace and freedom that had always eluded her. The path forward, trusting life's journey. So, where does Lily's journey lead? It leads to the realization that trusting life is not something we do once and then forget. It's a practice. Every day, we must choose to release control, embrace the uncertainty, and trust that life is unfolding exactly as it should. The more we let go, the more we are able to experience life in its full richness, not as a series of struggles and obstacles, but as a journey of growth, connection, and peace. The journey of letting go doesn't end. It's not a destination, but a way of being. It's a choice to trust, to accept, and to live in alignment with our truest selves. And in doing so, we invite life to flow effortlessly, bringing us exactly what we need when we need it. Conclusion: the power of letting go. Lily's story teaches us that letting go is not about losing, it's about gaining. It's about gaining freedom, peace, and the ability to be ourselves. The more we release our attachment to control, the more we make room for authenticity and growth. The more we trust the flow of life, the more we experience life's natural beauty and abundance. If you've been holding on to something, whether it's a past hurt, a future expectation, or a desire to control the outcome, know this: the moment you let go is the moment you step into the freedom you've been seeking all along. Trust the process. Let go of what no longer serves you. When you do, everything will fall into place.